When my billionaire grandfather died, my family split us $54 million in diamonds, mansions, and luxury cars. All I got? A broken wooden box that looked like trash. But when I opened it 3 months later, every single one of them went dead silent. What I found inside didn't just change my life, it destroyed theirs completely. Hit that subscribe button because this story will blow your mind, and I promise you won't see this twist coming. My name is Sarah, and I'm about to tell you the most insane story of betrayal, greed, and the ultimate revenge that happened in my own family. But before continuing my story and how everything unfolded, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing where you all are from. 3 months ago, I thought I was the unluckiest person alive. My grandfather, who built a jewelry empire worth over $60 million, had just passed away. The whole family gathered for the will reading, and I watched as my cousins, aunts, and uncles received millions in cash, diamond collections worth fortunes, luxury mansions in Miami and New York, and fleets of sports cars. My spoiled cousin Jennifer got a $15 million and a penthouse. My arrogant uncle Marcus received the main jewelry stores worth $20 million. My Aunt Catherine walked away with $12 million in rare diamonds. And me? The granddaughter who spent every weekend with Grandpa, who helped him in his workshop, who listened to his stories for hours? I got a beat-up wooden box that looked like it came from a garage sale. Everyone laughed. Jennifer actually took photos to post on social media, mocking me. "Look what the favorite granddaughter got," she posted with crying, laughing emojis. I was humiliated, heartbroken, and furious. My own family treated me like garbage while they celebrated their newfound wealth. I went home that night crying, thinking Grandpa had forgotten about me, or maybe even resented me. That broken box sat in my closet for 3 months because I couldn't bear to look at it. It was a constant reminder of how little I meant to my family. But sometimes, the universe has the most incredible way of balancing things out. The morning I finally decided to open that box was a rainy Tuesday in October. I had just gotten fired from my job at a marketing agency, and my landlord was threatening eviction. I was at rock bottom, staring at eviction notices and empty bank statements. In my desperation, I thought maybe I could sell whatever was in Grandpa's box to pay rent. I pulled it out of my closet with shaking hands. The wood was old and weathered, with scratches and dents all over it. There was no fancy lock, just a simple latch that barely held. As I opened it, the hinges creaked like they hadn't been used in decades. Inside, I found what looked like junk. Old yellowed papers, a rusty key, some faded photographs, and a small leather journal. My first reaction was complete devastation. Even the contents looked worthless. But something made me sit down and actually examine everything carefully. The photographs were of Grandpa as a young man, standing next to people I didn't recognize in front of buildings and locations I'd never seen. He looked happy, successful, but these weren't pictures I'd ever seen in our family albums. The papers were even more mysterious. They were legal documents, but not in English. Some appeared to be in German, others in what looked like Dutch or maybe Flemish. The handwriting was elegant but faded, and there were official stamps and seals I couldn't identify. My grandfather had never mentioned speaking other languages, and our family had always believed he started his business from nothing in America. The leather journal was the most intriguing piece. Every page was filled with Grandpa's handwriting, but it was different from his usual style. More careful, more secretive. As I started reading, I realized these weren't just random notes. These were detailed records of transactions, locations, and what appeared to be inventory lists. But inventory of what? Then I found the key. It was old, ornate, and had numbers engraved on it. 1247. Below the numbers was a symbol I'd never seen before. It looked like a diamond surrounded by wings. My hands were trembling as I held it because something deep inside told me this key was important. This wasn't just any key. I spent the entire night going through everything multiple times, trying to piece together what it all meant. The more I read, the more questions arose. Who were these people in the photographs? Why were there legal documents in foreign languages? And most importantly, what did this mysterious key open? By sunrise, I had made a decision that would change everything. I decided to do something I'd never done before: hire a private investigator. Using what little money I had left, I contacted a man named Detective Morrison who specialized in family histories and missing assets. When I showed him everything from the box, his expression changed completely. He went from polite professionalism to intense focus in seconds. "Where exactly did you get these documents?" he asked, examining the foreign papers with a magnifying glass. When I explained about my grandfather's death and the inheritance, he leaned back in his chair and whistled low. "Sarah, I think your grandfather was hiding something massive from your family. These aren't just old papers, these are registration documents from Swiss and Belgian banks from the 1940s and 1950s. My heart started racing. Swiss banks? My grandfather had never mentioned anything about international business or overseas accounts. Detective Morrison continued examining everything while explaining what he was seeing. The photographs showed my grandfather with important-looking men in expensive suits, standing in front of what appeared to be banks and jewelry exchanges in Europe. "This journal," Morrison said, flipping through the pages, "contains detailed records of diamond transactions, gold purchases, and what looks like safe deposit box numbers. Your grandfather wasn't just running a local jewelry business, Sarah. He was involved in international diamond trading on a massive scale." The key was the most shocking discovery. Morrison used his computer to research the symbol, and within minutes he found the answer. This symbol belongs to Steinberg and Associates, one of the most exclusive private banking institutions in Switzerland. They've been operating since 1923, and they only work with clients who have assets worth tens of millions. I felt like I was in a movie. My simple grandfather, who taught me how to polish gems in his small workshop, had been living a completely secret life. But why hide it from the family? Why pretend to be just a local business owner when he was apparently involved in international diamond trading? Detective Morrison offered to help me investigate further, but he warned me it would be expensive and time-consuming. I made a decision that seemed crazy at the time. I sold everything I owned, my car, jewelry, furniture, everything, to pay for his services. I was betting everything on the hope that this mystery would lead to something significant. 3 days later, Morrison called me with news that made my legs give out. "Sarah, you need to sit down. I've made some calls to contacts in Switzerland, and that key of yours? It opens a safe deposit box that's been untouched for over 20 years. And according to my source at the bank, the contents are substantial." 2 weeks later, I was on a plane to Zurich, Switzerland, with Detective Morrison beside me. I had never been to Europe, never imagined I'd be traveling to uncover family secrets that could change everything. The flight felt endless as questions swirled in my mind. What had my grandfather hidden? Why keep it secret from everyone? And most importantly, what was waiting for me in that safe deposit box? Steinberg and Associates was nothing like I expected. Located in the heart of Zurich's financial district, the building looked more like a fortress than a bank. Heavy stone walls, minimal signage, and security that made Fort Knox look casual. When we presented the key and identification documents, the staff treated us with a level of respect I'd never experienced. Mr. Steinberg himself, a distinguished man in his 70s, personally escorted us to the vault. "Your grandfather was a remarkable man," he said as we walked through corridors lined with paintings worth millions. "He was one of our most valued clients for over 50 years. We've been wondering when someone would come for box 1247. The vault was underground, accessible only through multiple security checkpoints and biometric scanners. When we finally reached the safe deposit box area, my heart was pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. Mr. Steinberg used my key along with the bank's master key to open a box that was much larger than I expected. Inside were stacks of documents, photographs, and small velvet bags, but what caught my attention immediately were the official papers on top. As Mr. Steinberg helped me understand what I was looking at, my entire world shifted. These weren't just bank statements, they were ownership documents for diamond mines in South Africa, property deeds for buildings across Europe, and stock certificates for companies I'd never heard of. "Your grandfather," Mr. Steinberg explained carefully, "was not just a jewelry store owner. He was one of the most successful diamond traders of his generation. He built an empire that spans 3 continents, but he chose to live simply and keep his wealth secret from his family. I opened the first velvet bag with trembling fingers. Inside were diamonds unlike anything I'd ever seen, each one larger than my thumb, cut to perfection, and sparkling with an intensity that took my breath away. There were 12 bags in total, each containing gems that would make crown jewels look modest. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. At the bottom of the box was a sealed envelope with my name written in Grandpa's handwriting. Inside was a letter that would explain everything and give me the power to change my family's lives forever, or destroy them completely. My dear Sarah, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone and you've found the key I left you. I know the family probably laughed at your worthless inheritance, and I'm sorry for that. But sometimes the most valuable gifts come in the most humble packages. Everything in this box belongs to you now. The diamonds, the properties, the businesses, all of it. The total value is approximately $847 million, but that's not the most important thing I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you the truth about our family and the power to decide what to do with it. I built this fortune over 60 years, starting from nothing when I arrived in America as a young refugee. I worked 18-hour days, made connections across the world, and slowly built an empire that spans diamond mines in Africa, jewelry stores across Europe, and real estate in major cities worldwide. But I kept it secret for a reason. Your family, my own children and grandchildren, showed me their true colors over the years. I watched as they became greedy, entitled, and cruel. They treated people badly, cared only about money and status, and showed no respect for hard work or kindness. I saw how they treated you, Sarah, and it broke my heart. You were different. You spent time with me not because you wanted something, but because you genuinely cared. You helped in my workshop without being asked, listened to my stories, and showed kindness to everyone around you. You have integrity, compassion, and strength, qualities that can't be bought or inherited. The papers in this box include ownership documents for everything I built. You now own 67% of Morrison Diamond Corporation, which operates mines in South Africa and Botswana. You own 12 properties across London, Paris, and New York, currently valued at over $200 million. You own 4 jewelry stores that generate approximately $30 million in annual revenue. But Sarah, I'm giving you more than money. I'm giving you the power to teach your family what really matters. They chose greed over love, status over family, and money over character. Now you get to decide whether they learn from their mistakes or face the consequences of their choices. The choice is yours, my dear granddaughter. You can share this wealth with them if they prove they've changed, or you can let them live with the consequences of how they treated you and others. Whatever you decide, know that I'm proud of you and I love you. Your grandfather who believed in you always. I sat in that Swiss bank vault, holding the letter with tears streaming down my face, as Detective Morrison and Mr. Steinberg waited respectfully. My grandfather hadn't forgotten me. He had chosen me. He had seen the cruelty and greed in our family and decided that I was the only one who could be trusted with his life's work. The power I now held was overwhelming and terrifying. Flying back to America, I felt like a completely different person. I had gone to Switzerland as a broke, heartbroken woman who had been humiliated by her family. I was returning as the secret owner of a US $847 million empire with the power to change or destroy the lives of everyone who had laughed at me. Detective Morrison helped me understand the full scope of what I now controlled. Beyond the obvious wealth, I had inherited business relationships with some of the most powerful people in the diamond industry. I had access to exclusive markets, private sales, and connections that money couldn't buy. My grandfather had built more than a business. He had built a legacy. But I also inherited something else. The knowledge of exactly how my family had been living since receiving their inheritance. Morrison's investigation revealed the shocking truth about what they had done with their millions. My cousin Jennifer had bought a used $8 million mansion in Beverly Hills and was throwing parties every weekend, bragging on social media about her wealth. Uncle Marcus had expanded the jewelry stores by taking massive loans, assuming he now had unlimited backing. Aunt Catherine had made the worst decisions of all. She had gambled away $7 million in casinos, bought worthless investments from scam artists, and was already asking family members for loans. The diamonds she inherited were beautiful, but she had no idea how to properly maintain, insure, or sell them for maximum value. They were all living like they had won the lottery, spending recklessly and making terrible financial decisions. But here's what they didn't know. The jewelry stores they thought Uncle Marcus owned, the properties they believed were fully paid for, the business connections they were bragging about, none of it was actually theirs. My grandfather had been incredibly clever. The US $54 million he left them in his will was real, but it was just the tip of the iceberg. The truly valuable assets, the ones that generated ongoing income and held real long-term value, were mine. The stores Marcus was running, I was the majority owner. The suppliers he depended on, they answered to me. I spent 2 weeks developing a plan that was both brilliant and devastating. I wasn't going to reveal my inheritance immediately. Instead, I was going to let them continue their reckless behavior while I quietly took control of everything that actually mattered. Then, when they were at their most vulnerable and overextended, I would reveal the truth in a way they would never forget. The first step was establishing my identity as the rightful owner of Morrison Diamond Corporation and all associated assets. The second step was watching my family destroy themselves with their own greed and stupidity. The third step would be the revelation that would change everything forever. 3 months after returning from Switzerland, I began executing my plan with the precision of a master chess player. Working with Mr. Steinberg and a team of international lawyers, I quietly took control of all my inherited assets while maintaining complete secrecy from my family. The first move was the jewelry stores. Uncle Marcus had been running them since Grandpa's death, making decisions about inventory, staff, and expansion. What he didn't know was that every major decision had to be approved by the majority shareholder, me. I instructed the lawyers to start requiring his approval for any purchase over his $10,000, any new staff hiring, or any changes to store operations. Marcus was confused and frustrated, calling family meetings to complain about new corporate policies and interference from banks. He had no idea that every obstacle he encountered was actually me, watching him struggle with running businesses he didn't truly own. Meanwhile, I was getting detailed reports about my family's spending habits, and they were worse than I had imagined. Jennifer had bought 3 luxury cars she couldn't afford, taken out loans against her mansion, and was planning an even bigger party for her birthday. She was posting constantly on social media, showing off designer clothes, expensive jewelry, and exotic vacations. Aunt Catherine was in complete financial freefall. She had lost another $3 million gambling, been scammed by fake investment advisors, and was secretly selling the diamonds from her inheritance at far below their actual value. She thought she was being clever, but every transaction was being monitored by my team. The most satisfying part was watching them interact with me. At family gatherings, they still treated me like the poor, unlucky granddaughter who got nothing. Jennifer would make comments about my cheap clothes and ask if I needed money. Marcus would pat my shoulder condescendingly and offer me a job at his stores. Catherine would sigh dramatically about how unfair Grandpa had been to me. If they only knew that I was quietly becoming one of the wealthiest young women in America while they were destroying themselves with their own greed and stupidity. But I wasn't satisfied with just watching them fail. I wanted them to understand exactly what they had lost by choosing money over family, greed over love, and cruelty over kindness. I wanted them to face the consequences of every mean comment, every moment they had made me feel worthless, and every time they had chosen wealth over human decency. The perfect opportunity came when Jennifer announced she was planning the party of the century for her 25th birthday. Jennifer's 25th birthday party was planned to be the most extravagant event our family had ever seen. She rented a $500,000 mansion in the Hollywood Hills, hired celebrity chefs, booked famous musicians, and invited over 300 people. The guest list included influencers, socialites, and anyone she wanted to impress with her newfound wealth. She had been planning for months, spending money she didn't actually have, and taking loans against assets that weren't fully hers. The party was her way of announcing to the world that she was now a wealthy heiress who deserved respect and admiration. I received my invitation with a handwritten note. "Sarah, I know you probably can't afford a nice gift, so just bring yourself. It'll be fun for you to see how real wealth looks like. XOXO, Jennifer." That note was the final straw. I had been patient, strategic, and careful for months. But reading her condescending words while sitting in my new penthouse, purchased quietly through shell companies, made me realize it was time for the revelation that would end their arrogance forever. I spent a week preparing for the party with the same attention to detail that I had used to build my secret empire. I hired the best attorneys, accountants, and investigators money could buy. I prepared legal documents, financial statements, and evidence that would prove beyond any doubt who actually owned what in our family. The night of the party, I arrived wearing a simple black dress and no expensive jewelry. I wanted to look exactly like the poor granddaughter they expected to see. Jennifer greeted me with fake sympathy, introduced me to her friends as my cousin who got nothing when our grandfather died, and made sure everyone knew I was the family charity case. For 3 hours, I watched them celebrate, brag about their wealth, and treat me like a pitiful relative they were kind enough to include. Marcus gave a speech about building the family business. Catherine showed off diamonds she had somehow managed not to lose gambling. Jennifer talked about her plans to expand her empire and become a major socialite. Then, at exactly 10:30 p.m., when the party was at its peak and everyone was watching, I asked the DJ to cut the music. I walked to the center of the room, pulled out a folder of documents, and said words that would haunt my family forever. Before this party ends, I think it's time everyone learned the truth about the Morrison family fortune and who actually owns it. The room went completely silent. What happened next destroyed their lives and changed mine forever. What I revealed that night was simple but devastating. I was the true heir to my grandfather's empire, worth us $847 million, and everything my family thought they owned actually belonged to me. I showed them the legal documents, the bank statements, and my grandfather's letter explaining why he had chosen me over them. The silence in that room was deafening. Jennifer's face went white as she realized her entire lifestyle was built on money she didn't actually have. Marcus understood that the jewelry stores he'd been bragging about owning were actually mine. Catherine realized that the few diamonds she hadn't gambled away were a tiny fraction of the fortune she could have shared if she had treated people with kindness instead of greed. But the most satisfying moment was reading my grandfather's letter aloud, explaining how he had watched them choose money over family, cruelty over compassion, and greed over love. Every person at that party heard exactly what my family was really like and why they had been judged unworthy of true wealth. Today, 6 months later, my family is learning what it means to live with the consequences of their choices. Jennifer lost her mansion, Marcus is struggling to keep the businesses running under my ownership, and Catherine is in financial ruin. They've all reached out to apologize and beg for help, but their apologies feel empty when they only came after they lost everything. I've chosen to help some family members who have shown genuine remorse and change, but others are learning that actions have consequences. My grandfather didn't just leave me money, he left me the wisdom to understand that true wealth comes from character, integrity, and treating others with respect. Se vocês gostaram desta história e querem ouvir outras parecidas, por favor se inscrevam no canal. Seria uma honra ter vocês aqui.